The morning sun of Veltaros cast long shadows through the tall windows of the medical center. Commander Zethkar sat in the soft chair, his forearms folded across his chest. His dark shell bore the marks of old battles, deep scars that had healed crooked, burn marks from plasma fire, and a missing section where his left shoulder plate used to be. On his chest hung the medals of a war hero. The golden spiral for bravery, the star of victory for tactical genius, the blood diamond for wounds received in service. Any Veltar citizen would know these honors. They marked him as one of the greatest warriors their people had ever produced, but his hands shook as he held his morning drink. Dr. Yilneth watched him from across the room. Her compound eyes studied every movement, every nervous twitch of his antennae. She had read his file many times. On paper, Zethkar was a legend, the architect of 3 major victories against human forces. The commander who saved millions of Veltar lives. The hero who ended the human war. In person, he looked like he had not slept in years. "Tell me about the dreams again," she said softly. Zethkar's mandibles clicked together. It was a nervous habit he had developed after the war. The same ones. Always the same ones. "Describe them for me." He set down his drink with careful movements. His hands were still shaking. "I am back on my ship, the Righteous Fury. It is dark in the corridors. Emergency lighting only. Red lights everywhere. And I can hear them." "Hear what?" "Laughter." The word came out like a curse. Human laughter. Echoing through my ship. Getting closer. And I know they are coming for me. But they are not running. They are walking, taking their time. Like they know I have nowhere to go. Dr. Yilneth made notes on her tablet. "What happens next?" "I try to run. But every corridor leads to more red lights, more laughter. And then I see the eyes. Red eyes in the darkness. Dozens of them. All looking at me. All happy." End quote. "They are happy to see me afraid. And then you wake up?" Zethkar nodded. "Screaming. Always screaming." The doctor put down her tablet. "Zethkar, you know the war ended 15 years ago. The humans have not entered Veltar space since then. You are safe. Safe." He said the word like it had no meaning. "Doctor, do you know what happened during the human war?" "I know what the official records say. Human expansion threatened our territory. We defended ourselves. You commanded our forces to victory. The humans withdrew to their own space." Zethkar made a sound that might have been laughter. But there was no humor in it. "The official records?" "Yes. Those are very clean stories. Are you saying they are not true?" "They are not lies, but they are not the whole truth either." He stood up and walked to the window. Below them, the capital city of Veltaros stretched out in perfect order. Clean streets, organized buildings, everything in its proper place, everything rational. "Doctor, what do you know about humans?" "Only what we learned during the war. They are mammals. They come from a world they call Earth. They are aggressive and territorial. They have crude technology but large numbers. That is what we thought too, in the beginning." He turned back to face her. "We thought we understood them. We thought they were like every other species we had met. We thought war was just mathematics to them, like it is to us. War is mathematics, Zethkar. Casualties versus gains, cost versus benefit. Every rational species understands this. Yes. Every rational species." He sat back down. His hands were shaking worse now. "That was our first mistake. Thinking they were rational." Dr. Yilneth leaned forward. This was more than he had said in any previous session. "Tell me about first contact." Tell me about first contact. "I was younger then, a fleet commander. I thought I knew everything about war." Zethkar closed his eyes. "The humans came in ships that looked like they were held together with metal tape and hope. Our analysts laughed at their technology. Crude fusion drives. Primitive weapons. No energy shields at all. But they had numbers? Numbers, yes. But that should not have mattered. We had better ships, better training, better tactics, and we had logic on our side. He opened his eyes. Their first message to us was strange. They said they came in peace, but they brought bigger guns just in case. Our diplomats thought it was a translation error. What happened when negotiations failed? We expected standard war, orbital bombardments, fleet battles. Eventually, they would count their losses and surrender. That is how civilized species fight. Clean, mathematical, efficient. But they did not fight that way. Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. Doctor, in your worst nightmares, have you ever imagined an enemy that would rather die than surrender? That makes no sense. Death is the end of everything. No rational goal is worth that. No, that is what we thought too. He looked at his medals. I won these fighting humans. But I did not defeat them. I survived them. There is a difference. Dr. Yilneth put down her tablet completely. Zethkar, you are a war hero. The entire Confederacy honors your service. You saved millions of lives. Did I? Or did the humans let me live to tell this story? He stood up again. Doctor, do you know why I really come to these sessions? To help with your nightmares. To process your trauma from the war. No. He walked toward the door. I come because I need someone to believe me. Because I need someone to understand what we really faced out there. What did you face? He paused with his hand on the door. We faced a species that finds joy in impossible fights. That laughs while dying. That sings while bleeding. That treats warfare like a celebration. That sounds like madness. Yes. It does. He opened the door. The same appointment next week, Doctor? Quote, after he left, Dr. Yilneth sat alone in her office. She looked at her notes from the session. Then she opened her computer and searched for classified military records from the human war. What she found made her understand why a war hero still woke up screaming 15 years after his greatest victory. 16 years earlier, Fleet Commander Zethkar stood on the bridge of the VCS Dominant Logic, watching the human ships approach through the darkness of space. He was young then, full of confidence and pride in his first major command. The Veltar 3rd Battle Group spread out behind him in perfect formation. 60 ships of war, each one a masterpiece of engineering and tactical design. The human fleet looked like a collection of space junk. Sir, I count 200 human vessels, reported his sensor officer. But their design is unusual. Zethkar studied the tactical display. The human ships were all different sizes and shapes. Some looked like cargo haulers with weapons bolted to the sides. Others appeared to be mining ships converted for war. A few seemed to be actual warships. But they were crude things with thick armor and simple weapons. They have no shields, his tactical officer observed. No plasma arrays. Their engines are primitive fusion drives. Sir, with respect, this should be over quickly. The human fleet stopped just outside weapons range and broadcast a message. When it came through the translators, the bridge crew burst into what passed for laughter among the Veltar. Attention, unknown vessels. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the human colonial fleet. We come in peace, but we brought bigger guns, just in case. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions in human space. Human space? Zethkar's communications officer shook his head. Sir, these systems have been unoccupied for over 1,000 years. There is no legal claim here. They are new to galactic politics, Zethkar said. Send the standard response. Tell them this is Veltar territory under the expansion protocols. They need to withdraw. The response came back quickly. This is Admiral Chen. We appreciate your position, but we've already set up colonies on 3 worlds in this system. How about we talk about this like civilized people? Zethkar had dealt with 17 different species during his career. First contact always followed the same pattern. The weaker species would bluster and threaten until they saw superior force. Then they would negotiate. Finally, They would accept whatever terms allowed them to save face, while giving up what the stronger species wanted. "Open a channel," he ordered. "This is Fleet Commander Zethkar of the Veltar Confederacy. Your presence in this system violates our territorial claims. You will evacuate your colonies and withdraw your fleet within 48 hours. Fleet Commander, this is Admiral Chen. I understand your position, but we can't abandon colonies with 3 million people on short notice. How about we meet halfway? We'll restrict our expansion to the 3 worlds we already occupy. You can have the rest of the system." Zethkar almost admired their negotiating skills. Open with an impossible demand, then offer a reasonable compromise. It was standard diplomatic strategy. "Admiral Chen, you misunderstand the situation. This is not a negotiation. This is notice of eviction." The channel was quiet for several minutes. When the human admiral spoke again, her voice was different, colder. "Fleet Commander Zethkar, we've been monitoring galactic communications. We know about your expansion into 15 other systems. We know about the species that have been relocated or absorbed into your confederacy. We understand how this works. Then you understand there is no choice in the matter. Actually, there is. We're offering you a choice right now. We can share this system, or we can fight for it. But we're not leaving. These people are our families." Zethkar looked at his tactical display. The human fleet had not moved, but they were powering weapons and raising what passed for battle readiness on their primitive ships. "Admiral Chen, you have 200 ships. We have 60. But our technology is superior. This is not a fight you can win. Maybe not. But it won't be a fight you'll enjoy winning." That response puzzled Zethkar. War was not about enjoyment. It was about mathematics. Superior force applied to achieve strategic goals with acceptable losses. Either the humans were bluffing, or they truly did not understand modern warfare. "Admiral, be reasonable. Your colonies can be relocated. Your people can find new homes. This does not need to end in bloodshed. Commander, let me explain something about humans. We don't relocate well. When we find a home, we tend to stay. And when someone tries to take our home away, we get unreasonable." The channel closed. On the tactical display, the human fleet began to spread out into what looked like an attack formation. But it was wrong. All wrong. They were putting their weakest ships in front and their strongest ships behind. They were spreading too wide to concentrate fire. They were exposing their flanks to crossfire. "Sir," his tactical officer said, "they are either very stupid or they know something we do not." "Prepare for battle," Zethkar ordered. "This will be a lesson for them, short and decisive." The engagement began at long range. Veltar plasma arrays reached out across space like fingers of lightning, finding their targets with computer precision. The first wave of human ships died quickly, their crude armor no match for coherent plasma streams, but something was wrong. The human ships that were dying were fighting back until the moment their hulls cracked open. They did not retreat when damaged. They did not surrender when outgunned. They kept firing their primitive weapons until the void took them. "Sir," the communications officer said, "we are receiving transmissions from the human fleet. But they are not surrender requests." "Sir, what are they?" "They appear to be singing, sir." Zethkar stared at the tactical display. 20 human ships had been destroyed, 40 more were damaged. But the rest kept coming. And from their communications came the sound of human voices raised in song. Not prayers or death chants, but something that sounded almost cheerful. "What are the words?" "The translation software is having difficulty, sir. But I think they are singing about going to war, about being excited to fight." The second wave of human ships hit the Veltar formation like a hammer. They used their crude ships like battering rams, closing to point-blank range where superior Veltar technology meant nothing. Ship after ship died, but each one took at least one Veltar vessel with it, and still they sang. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Veltar had lost 18 ships. The humans had lost 130. By any mathematical measure, it was a decisive Veltar victory. But as Zethkar watched the surviving human ships withdraw, he felt something he had never felt after a victory before. Fear. Because in the final transmissions from the dying human ships, he heard something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The humans were not screaming in pain or crying for mercy. They were laughing. 6 months into the war, Zethkar found himself staring at a tactical display that made no sense. Proxima Station hung in space before his fleet like a metal flower, its arms stretched out to catch the light from a distant star. Intelligence reports said it was a supply depot. 30,000 human military personnel. 50,000 civilians. Critical to the human supply chain in this sector, by every rule of warfare, it should have surrendered by now. Sir, his aide reported, the station has been cut off for 12 days. No supply ships, no reinforcement, no communication with the human fleet. They have to be running low on everything by now. Everyone. Content to the fleet? This video 1. Zethkar nodded. It was simple mathematics. Cut off a position, wait for resources to run out, accept surrender, clean and efficient. Have they responded to our surrender demands? Yes, sir. The station commander sends the same message every day, which is? The aide looked uncomfortable. Come and take it, sir. Zethkar had learned to hate human humor during the past months. They made jokes about everything, even dying. Especially dying. Begin the assault. Target the docking bays first. Cut off any escape routes. The first wave of Veltar Marines went in expecting token resistance. The station's outer defenses were offline. Power was running on emergency backup. It should have been a simple occupation. Instead, it became a nightmare. Every corridor was a trap. Every room was a fortress. The humans had turned their own station into a maze of death. They used maintenance shafts as sniper positions. They rigged their own life support systems to explode. They made weapons out of tools and turned their children into soldiers. Sir, the Marine commander reported from somewhere deep in the station. We have taken the outer ring. But casualties are at 15%. The humans are not fighting like military personnel. What do you mean? They are fighting like wild animals, sir. They use tactics that make no sense. Suicide attacks. Booby traps that kill their own people along with ours. And sir, the civilians are not evacuating. They are fighting too. Zethkar studied the battle reports. 15% casualties to take one section of a station that should have fallen in hours. At this rate, taking the entire station would cost him half his force. What about the children? Surely they are evacuating the young ones? No, sir. The children are. Sir, you need to see this recording. The video feed showed a Veltar squad moving through what looked like a school. Tiny humans, barely past infancy, should have been cowering in corners. Instead, they were setting traps, using their small size to crawl through ventilation shafts and attack from behind. One youngling, no bigger than Zethkar's arm, had somehow rigged an explosive device to a door. This is impossible, Zethkar muttered. No rational species uses children as soldiers. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We are receiving a broadcast from the station. It appears to be directed at our forces. Put it through. A human voice filled the bridge. Male. Young. Speaking in accented but clear Veltar. Hello. Bug people. This is Sergeant Mike Rodriguez of the Proxima Defense Force. I wanted to thank you for visiting our little station. We don't get many visitors out here, so we've prepared a warm welcome. The voice was followed by laughter from multiple humans. Then came sounds of weapons being prepared, and what might have been bottles clinking together. We know you think we should surrender. And honestly, that would be the smart thing to do. But here's the thing about humans. We're not always smart. Sometimes we're just stubborn, and sometimes we're just plain mean. Today, we're feeling a little bit of both. More laughter. In the background, Zethkar could hear human voices singing again. Always singing. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to keep sending your people into our station, and we're going to keep killing them, and you're going to keep taking casualties until you decide this piece of metal isn't worth the cost. Because we've already decided it's worth everything we have. The transmission ended with the sound of a human child asking, "Did I set the trap right, Daddy?" And an adult voice answering, "Perfect, sweetheart." They'll never see it coming. Zethkar turned off the audio feed. His hands were shaking, though he did not realize it yet. Status report from all assault teams. The reports came in one by one. 20% casualties in Section C. The humans had flooded an entire level with toxic gas, killing their own civilians along with the Veltar Marines. 30% casualties in Section F. Human defenders had collapsed a maintenance tunnel, trapping both forces underground and fighting hand-to-hand in the dark. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "our casualties are now at 28%. Veltar doctrine calls for withdrawal when losses exceed 25%. I know the doctrine." Zethkar stared at the station. A simple supply depot. Nothing special about it. Nothing that could not be replaced. But now it had cost him over 1,000 good soldiers. How many humans are left defending? Estimates say less than 5,000 military. Maybe 10,000 civilians. They have lost over 70% of their people. And they are still fighting. Yes, sir. If anything, they are fighting harder. Zethkar made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. All units, fall back to the ships. We are withdrawing from the station. Sir? His aide looked shocked. We have the station almost taken. A few more hours, and it will be ours. At what cost? Another 1,000 Marines? 2,000? For what? A supply depot? Zethkar turned away from the tactical display. No. The humans can keep their metal tomb. As the Veltar forces withdrew, the human communications came alive again. But this time it was not threats or tactical chatter. It was celebration. Cheering. Laughter. It was celebration. Cheering. Laughter. Songs of victory. They were celebrating the successful defense of a station that was no longer capable of sustaining life. Most of their people were dead. Their supplies were gone. Their weapons were broken. Their home was a ruin. And they were throwing a party. "Sir," the communications officer said, "the station commander is sending a personal message to you. Put it through." The voice was female this time. Tired but unbroken. "This is Commander Sarah Park. Proxima Station. Fleet Commander Zethkar. I wanted to thank you for the dance. It was fun while it lasted." "Commander Park," Zethkar found himself responding, "your station is no longer defensible. Your people are dying. Why do you not surrender?" "Because surrender isn't an option when you're defending home, Commander. You see, that's the difference between your people and mine. You fight for territory. We fight for each other." There was a pause, then the human commander continued. "Tell me, Commander, how many of your people are you willing to lose for this one little station?" That depends on strategic value. And there's the difference. I'm willing to lose all of mine. Every single person here would rather die than let you take our home. Can you say the same about your warriors?" The channel closed. As his fleet jumped away from Proxima Station, Zethkar realized something that chilled him to his core. The humans had won, not by defeating his forces, but by making victory cost more than defeat. For the first time in his military career, he had retreated from an inferior enemy. Not because they were stronger, but because they were willing to pay a price he could not match. They were willing to pay everything. The assault on Seoul began with mathematical certainty. Zethkar, now promoted to Supreme Fleet Commander, led the largest military force the Veltar had ever assembled. 2,000 ships. The entire First Fleet. Every capital ship, every carrier, every support vessel the Confederacy could spare. Intelligence was clear. Earth was the human homeworld. Capture it, and human resistance would collapse. No species in galactic history had continued fighting after losing their birth planet. The psychological impact was too great. The cultural devastation too complete. The plan was perfect. "Sir," his tactical coordinator reported, We have completed the jump to Sol system. All ships are in position. The human fleet appears to be smaller than expected. Zethkar studied the display. The human home fleet numbered perhaps 300 ships. Old vessels. Many showing battle damage from previous engagements. Against 2,000 Veltar warships, they stood no chance. What about planetary defenses? Earth's orbital platforms are heavily armed, sir. Luna Base has significant defensive capabilities, but our analysis shows we can reduce them within 48 hours with acceptable casualties. Acceptable casualties. The phrase had lost meaning for Zethkar over the past year of fighting humans. Every engagement cost more than projected. Every victory left him with fewer ships and more questions. Begin the assault. Target the moon first. Eliminate their forward base. The attack on Luna started exactly as planned. Veltar plasma arrays lit up space, reaching across millions of kilometers to strike human positions. The moon's defense platforms fired back with primitive kinetic weapons and fusion warheads. Crude, but determined. Then something impossible happened. Sir. The sensor operator called out. I'm detecting massive energy buildup from Earth's solar collection arrays. Zethkar looked at the tactical display. Earth's power grid was massive, designed to collect energy from their star to feed billions of people. But the energy readings were all wrong. Instead of channeling power to the planet, the arrays were focusing it outward. What are they doing? Unknown, sir. The power levels are. Sir, they're overloading their entire grid. This will cause massive power failures across the planet. On the main screen, Earth grew brighter. Not the gentle blue-white of reflected sunlight, but the harsh brilliance of focused stellar energy. The human homeworld was turning itself into a weapon. Sir. The communications officer's voice cracked with fear. We're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. They're broadcasting on all channels. Put it through. The voice that filled the bridge belonged to an older human. Calm. Almost cheerful. This is Admiral James Harrison, Earth Defense Command. To all Veltar forces in the Sol system, you are about to witness something that has never been attempted in galactic history. We are going to throw our star at you. Well, the tactical display lit up with warnings. Energy readings from Earth were climbing beyond anything their sensors had recorded. The planet itself was beginning to glow. This is impossible, Zethkar's science officer whispered. They are destabilizing their own star. The solar flares alone will sterilize their planet. Admiral Harrison's voice continued. We know what you're thinking. Why would we destroy our own home to fight you? The answer is simple. Because it's our choice to make. The first solar flare erupted from Earth's star like a fist of plasma reaching across space. But this was no natural stellar event. Human technology guided it, focused it, aimed it directly at the Veltar fleet. Evasive maneuvers. Zethkar screamed, but it was too late. The plasma wave struck the forward elements of his fleet, overloading shields and frying electronics. Dozens of ships went dark as their power systems failed. Sir, the electromagnetic pulse is disrupting our communications. Half the fleet is reporting system failures. But the humans were not finished. As Veltar ships struggled to restore power, the human fleet attacked. Not with careful tactics or strategic positioning, but with pure, desperate fury. Ships that should have been fleeing instead charged into the chaos, using the solar storm as cover. They're ramming us, someone screamed. On the main display, Zethkar watched a human destroyer, its hull glowing from radiation damage, slam into a Veltar battleship. Both vessels exploded in a bloom of fire and metal. More ships followed. Human vessels, crippled by their own solar weapon, used their last moments to crash into Veltar ships. It was madness. It was suicide. It was working. Sir, we need to withdraw. The solar storms are affecting our navigation. We cannot maintain formation. But Zethkar was listening to the human communications. Throughout the chaos, throughout the dying and the burning, he could hear them talking to each other. Not screaming orders or crying in pain, talking. Like they were having a conversation over dinner. Delta Wing, you still with us? Barely. Lost main power. Running on backup. But the guns still work. Good enough. Let's go say hello to that carrier. Copy that. It's been an honor flying with you, Sarah. Honor's mine, Tom. See you on the other side. Then came the laughter. Always the laughter. The battle lasted 18 hours. When the solar storms finally died down, Zethkar surveyed the wreckage of what had been the greatest fleet in Veltar history. Over 800 ships lost, thousands of trained warriors dead. For what? The humans had lost nearly their entire fleet. Their moon base was destroyed. Their planet was damaged, possibly beyond recovery. But they were still fighting. Sir, the communications officer said quietly. We're receiving a transmission from Earth. From Admiral Harrison. Put it through. The human admiral sounded tired now, but not defeated. Supreme Commander Zethkar, I believe congratulations are in order. You have successfully conquered an empty battlefield. Admiral Harrison, your fleet is destroyed. Your defenses are offline. Surrender, and we will treat your people with honor. Commander, you still don't understand. We're not fighting for our fleet. We're not fighting for our defenses. We're not even fighting for our planet. There was a pause, and Zethkar could hear explosions in the background. We're fighting for the right to choose how this ends. Choose how what ends. Everything. You see, Commander, you made one critical error in your calculations. You assumed we wanted to survive this. But survival was never the goal. The goal was to make sure that if humanity dies, we choose the terms. The transmission cut to a wider channel, broadcasting to both fleets. Admiral Harrison's voice now carried across space to every human survivor and every Veltar warrior. This is Admiral Harrison to all human forces. Final order. If we're going down, we're taking them with us. What followed broke something fundamental in Zethkar's understanding of warfare. Human ships that could barely fly launched themselves at Veltar positions. Human ground forces that had been bypassed came out of hiding and attacked supply lines. Damaged human stations that should have been abandoned suddenly came alive with weapons fire. It was not a military action. It was a species-wide suicide attack designed to inflict maximum damage on the enemy. And through it all, they kept talking to each other, joking, singing, saying goodbye. This is Captain Rodriguez. Anyone got a count on how many bug ships we've taken out? Rough estimate? About half their fleet. Not bad for a day's work. Hey, anyone remember that song my grandmother used to sing? The one about going home? Day, 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 and then they sang. As they died, as their ships exploded, as their world burned around them, they sang. Zethkar ordered the retreat 3 hours later, not because his forces were defeated, but because he finally understood what he was fighting. The humans were not trying to win. They were trying to ensure that victory would cost more than anyone could pay. As his surviving ships limped away from the Sol system, Zethkar received one final transmission from Earth. A single human voice. Young and clear. Hey Bug Commander, this is Lieutenant Lisa Chen, Earth Defense Force. I wanted you to know something before you go. What is that, Lieutenant? We're not angry with you. This is just what we do when someone tries to take our home away. Nothing personal. The channel closed. Zethkar never found out if Lieutenant Chen survived. But her words followed him across the galaxy and into every nightmare he would have for the rest of his life. Because she had sounded happy. Dr. Yilneth watched Zethkar pace around her office like a caged animal. His story had taken 3 hours to tell, interrupted by long silences and moments when his hands shook so badly he could not hold his drink. So the war ended with your retreat from Sol, she said carefully. The war ended with our survival, he corrected. There is a difference. But you won. The humans withdrew to their own space. They have not threatened Veltar territory since then. Zethkar stopped pacing and stared at her. Doctor, what do you think winning means? Achieving your strategic objectives with acceptable losses. Then we did not win. We fled. He returned to his chair. We fled from a species that was willing to destroy themselves rather than submit. That is not victory. That is barely survival. Dr. Yilneth made notes on her tablet. Zethkar, you saved millions of Veltar lives. You prevented a larger war. You are a hero. Am I? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Doctor, do you know what haunts me about the humans? It is not their violence. It is not their tactics. It is not even their willingness to die. Then what is it? Their joy. The word came out like a curse. Every battle, every desperate fight, every impossible situation, they found joy in it. They laughed while dying. They sang while bleeding. They celebrated their own destruction. He stood up again and walked to the window. In every recording, in every transmission, in every prisoner we captured, the humans talked about their families, their children, their art, their music. They were people, just like us. But when fighting started, they became something else. What did they become? They became happy. Zethkar turned back to face her. Doctor, I have fought 17 different species. Fear, I understand. Anger, I understand. Desperation, I understand. But joy? Joy in the face of certain death? That is beyond my comprehension. Dr. Yilneth put down her tablet. Zethkar, you are describing post-traumatic stress from encountering an enemy you could not understand. This is treatable. No. His voice was firm. You still do not understand. I am not seeking treatment to forget the war. I am seeking treatment to remember it correctly. What do you mean? The official records call it the human war. They describe it as a successful defense against human expansion. But that is not what happened. Zethkar sat down heavily. What happened was, we encountered a species that redefined warfare itself. He leaned forward. Doctor, what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? It is a philosophical paradox with no answer. The humans gave it an answer. They became both. They were the unstoppable force that would never quit, and the immovable object that would never yield. And when those two things met, the universe itself had to bend. Dr. Yilneth was quiet for a long moment. What do you think really happened at the end of the war? I think the humans decided they had made their point. Zethkar's voice was barely a whisper. I think they could have destroyed us completely, but they chose not to. Why would they show mercy after everything that happened? Not mercy. Pragmatism. They proved that conquering them would cost more than any empire could afford. So they let us live. To spread that message, he stood up and walked to the door. Doctor, there is something I have never told anyone. Something that happened in the final battle. What was that? I was on Luna Base during the ground assault. A human soldier had me cornered. His weapon was aimed at my chest. He could have killed me easily. Zethkar's hands were shaking again. Do you know what he did? What? He looked at me for a long moment. Then he smiled, and he walked away, just like that. Zethkar opened the door. As he left, he said something. Go home, tell them what you saw. Dr. Yilneth felt a chill run through her. You think they deliberately let you survive? I think they let all of us survive. The Veltar High Command wants to classify the human war as a victory, a successful deterrent to expansion. But I know the truth. He paused in the doorway. We did not defeat humanity. We survived an encounter with them. What is the difference? The difference is that they are still out there, still growing, still becoming stronger. And now they know that the galaxy is full of species like us. After he left, Dr. Yilneth sat alone in her office for a long time. Finally, she opened her computer and accessed the restricted military databases. What she found there made her understand why Zethkar still woke up screaming. The final military report from Sol System contained sensor readings that made no scientific sense. The humans had not just used their star as a weapon, they had somehow increased its output beyond normal stellar physics. The energy signatures suggested technology far beyond what they had shown during the war. But the most disturbing part was the final entry in Zethkar's combat log. A single line that Command had classified at the highest level. Enemy demonstrated capability to destroy their own star. Recommend immediate diplomatic contact to prevent future conflicts. Dr. Yilneth closed the file and stared out her window at the peaceful city below. Somewhere, out there in the galaxy, humans were spreading to new worlds, developing new technologies, teaching their children new songs, and they were singing. She thought about Zethkar's nightmares. Red eyes in the darkness. Human laughter echoing through ship corridors. The terrible knowledge that somewhere in space, there was a species that found joy in impossible fights. But the most terrifying part was not the laughter, or the joy, or even the willingness to die. The most terrifying part was that the humans had won not by being monsters, but by being people. People who chose to become something unstoppable when their families were threatened. People who would rather destroy everything than surrender what they loved. Dr. Yilneth understood now why Zethkar would never sleep peacefully again. It was not the memory of human cruelty that haunted him. It was the memory of human kindness, their love for each other, their protection of their young, their art and music and laughter, all the things that made them people just like the Veltar. Because if ordinary people could become what the humans became when pushed too far, then the universe was far more dangerous than anyone imagined. Somewhere out there, humanity was still singing their battle songs, still teaching their children to laugh in the face of impossible odds, still choosing to become monsters rather than victims when someone threatened their home, and they were getting stronger every day. Dr. Yilneth made a note in her personal log. Recommend that the Confederacy establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity at the earliest opportunity. Recommend that all future contact be conducted with the assumption that humanity prefers mutual cooperation to mutual destruction, but is fully capable of either. Then she closed her office and went home to her family, grateful to live in a galaxy where humans had chosen to be neighbors instead of conquerors. For now,